Quick shout out to our sponsors for this episode, JR Safety Co. Equipment Compliance, providing mobile risk assessments for all civil construction and agricultural industries. Hello and welcome to another episode of Earthworks Hub, guys. Today I have Mark from Digtech, and he comes to us all the way from the ACT. So Mark, welcome to this episode.
Thanks for having me. I'm a fan of the show, so been listening flat stick in the machine the last few weeks. So yeah, it's good. One of my friends, Paul, is like, you need to have a listen to this. So I jumped on board.
Yeah, it's good. It's good around, man. I hear it a lot. I hear a lot of people say that they spend time listening to podcasts while they're operating, because I suppose it's the only sort of thing you can do. And sometimes you have enough of music and you think, oh, I'll just listen to some information and that. So I'm glad that you guys are listening.
I feel like maybe because we're in the zone operating, you're listening better. I think if you're just doing something else, maybe you wouldn't be as connected to the podcast or stuff like that. So
yeah, true. That's true. Yeah, no, look, thanks for coming on, and thanks for listening as well. I suppose let's start with maybe yourself. So Digtech is your company. Tell us a little bit about your company, like what you do and stuff.
So I've got some plants. So I provide subcontracting plant works to a few contractors in Canberra, one more so. I do sort of 80% of work for them. And within Digtech, we provide labour, operators, and also site supervising. So it sort of makes us quite versatile, happy to jump out of the machine and do other things that sort of keeps you on your toes. And yeah, so that's what I've sort of been doing now for 2 years in June. And prior to that, I was always dabbling on the side with a smaller outfit, like a 1.5 ton machine, a little tipper, and just doing those weekend works and building my way up like everybody else sort of does in the industry. So yes, when it was time to transition from dabbling to full time, it was, pretty daunting, but best thing that I ever did. So
yeah, all right. And then so you had the 1.5 and all that. So what have you got sort of now? What's the main equipment you have?
So now I run a 15-ton Volvo. So has all the fruit, so the tilt, GPS, etc. I've got a Cat Posi, and I just sold a 5-tonner, so I'm looking to update and replace that. So potentially another Volvo or Cat, I guess.
Oh. So you're saying you service more like, is it like Civil Works? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Civil Works. So there's a company here in Canberra that I worked for as a site manager, and then now I subcontract to them. So they run subdivisions. There's different jobs here and there, a little bit of demolition, stormwater work. So anything that you would expect to do, you're doing. So it's good. It's a good variety, and yeah.
Yeah, I was actually looking at some of your socials and trying to figure out what sort of work you do, and you do a whole range of stuff.
You do everything. Yeah,
they're doing something else. So I do a bit of everything. Yeah. I suppose what you have to be versatile, and then that sort of machine range that you have, it's very similar to what I had as well. So you can sort of do anything with that.
I think it keeps it interesting. You know yourself when you're doing day in, day out, especially as an owner operator. You're the one in the machine. You're doing the time. You want it to be interesting. You want it to challenge you. I think we've all done it in the industry. We've all sat on stockpiles and loaded out for several weeks, and that doesn't really do anything for me like a lot of other operators. So I think if you're doing new jobs and new designs, you get given a set of plans and go with it. I think you feel probably more understanding of what you need to achieve.
Yeah, I agree, because there's nothing better than being able to swap between machines and not being the one for too long, because you're right, you get bored of it, you get to be stagnant in there, and it's good when you can move around. Then you understand different parts of the job, so if you're in the posi track, you know what you got to level and this and that, then next minute you're in the machine, then you know what you've got to move for the posi track later and stuff, so you sort of understand better. Yeah.
So you had a different sort of setup with plant sizing. So I think on your other podcast you said you had a 20-ton machine at one stage, 15s, and
yeah. Same. I had a few 20s, a few posis, a few 1.8 tonner, everything. 5-ton, 4-ton, 15. So yeah, and tippers. So it was good
what
because.
What was your preference out of all that?
I don't know. It somewhere between the 5-ton and the posi track, because you do a whole range of stuff. Like you said, if I sat in the 20-tonner for a while, you get bored of it loading trucks out, bulking out.
You don't really get out of a 20-tonner during the day. Whereas a 5 tonner, you're out setting lasers, you're doing other bits and pieces, or a posi. But the bigger they are, the more time you generally spend in the seat. So sometimes you don't, apart from talking on the UHF, you don't interact with anybody from, start of the morning to smoko, lunch. It's, it's a
It's
long
true.
stint.
It's so true, man. And then it's funny because you see a lot of guys take their shoes off and all late in the 20s, and I was thinking the 5 tonner, there's no chance because you're like,
No chance.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's good. What about yourself? What do you find the most interesting machine?
I like my 15 because you're doing a bit of detail, a little bit bulk. I think the variety's quite good on it. But yeah, everything's got its perks, and it's great to jump in a posi. But I'm quite a tall bloke, so once you get out of it at the end of the day, you think, oh, it'd be good to get back in a digger or go and do something else. So
Yeah. And I find in the posse you do bounce around a bit, so like
yeah,
you
you do.
you got rocks around you and stuff, and you're bouncing over things. And if you're doing like nature strips, you're bouncing over the curbs, and yeah, it can get a bit hard on your back.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So you got the machines and that. What about workers and things? So how many guys have you got, or is it just you at the moment? How's that work?
I've got 2 guys on, so they're pretty good. One's background is a chippy, so he's great with measurements, etc. And then I've got one guy, his background's pipe layer, stormwater, and so on. So they're quite versatile guys. Good to have on board, good to have in machines, and then good to get out on the ground and do those things.
Yeah.
So, and then yeah, I'm in a machine full time also, and then do all the hours outside of the job site like every other director, I guess.
Yeah, that's the joys of the business, isn't it?
Yeah, it
All,
is.
all those unpaid hours, yeah.
Yeah. You think, yeah, oh, I can make this amount with a machine, but I don't,
Yeah.
when you're a younger guy starting off, you don't factor in just all your emails, your payroll that you're doing. I do everything myself. Everything's done. Apart from my BAS, I prepare it obviously, but everything's done through me. So it's sort of, there's those hours that you can't charge for, but you're better off to do it in-house if you have the ability than to pay someone else and to know, per month what diesel you're using and stuff like that. So you can keep a tally on it all and make sure, which bit of item's productive, which one can I move, what can I change.
Yeah. Oh, what do you actually, you know what? Just to help out some other guys in that, what do you do with your guys? Do they have their own vehicles, or do you provide vehicles? And how do you?
I did have a work ute for one guy. He's not with me anymore, so I'm just driving that around. And the other boys, I give them fuel cards. So
Okay.
I say, you chuck a fuel pot on your truck, whatever you need for it. Here's a fuel card, use it, whatever you need. And yeah, I'm probably not at the scale to go out and have, 10 Land Cruisers or something silly, or,
Yeah.
new Rangers or whatever. So I think that works. And sometimes I've had work utes before, like, they're all tracked. If it's your truck, you can, take it out the snow or do whatever you want to do. So
Yeah. 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 No, because I know some people still give their guys jerry cans. Some make them put pods on their utes. Some give
yeah,
them. Some don't give them fuel cards. Some give workers like they just have a fuel truck turn up and fill everything up.
yeah.
I just sort of ask, because there's different options out there.
Yeah, there is. I think on some job sites I have had a fuel truck turn up and fuel up. Other sites I'm there, so I fuel everything, but whatever works. And I think an employee appreciates when they go to the Bowser that they're not paying for it in their own vehicle. If you're expecting them to drive around and etc. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. Um. So and then like, what about? So you said that you've got the 14-ton machine or 15, sorry. I noticed you had some posts with GPS on there and that. So do you use like that sort of technology?
yeah, so I run a Lycra system, and I think it's unreal. So the handy side of it is if there isn't a design for a job, you can create one, or you can use it in a 2D format. I find it quite handy. It's not the be all and end all. You can dig a lot of stuff without GPS, but if you've got it, it's definitely handy, and it's an item that you can charge out, yield a bit of money from, and I think in that range, most machines now in a 15-ton range have GPS in it too. It's very, very standard now. You'd be sort of disadvantaged if you didn't have that. And
Yeah.
yourself, like you're not necessarily going to get more hourly hire for a unit if you've got all these buckets, tilt, etc. But makes the job more efficient. Makes it's a little bit easier, and I think it's definitely, I've heard you in your podcast talking about it a little bit, and I think it's good to learn without it. I learnt without it.
Yep.
Um, I worked at Delta Group back in the day, and there was no tilt hitches or nothing. There was one for one machine, but very rarely did you get a run in it. So I
Yeah.
think it's important to be able to jump in a 20 and trim something with no tilt, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree. It's good to learn without it, and then when you do get it, you really appreciate it. Yeah.
You do, yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes you look better.
It does. It does. And look, like you say, it's a lot more efficient, even for the customer. Like I've had customers in the past say, like, "Oh, we don't really care if you've got one or not." But I always tell them, once you see me with it, you'll see how much quicker I can do things, and it's better.
Absolutely. Like you are getting the same hourly hire. It might cost you 40 odd grand for a tilt, but it's more efficient, I think, and it's just pretty standard now. It's not really, oh, they've got a tilt. It's like it's more they don't have a tilt. So
Yes, I've noticed. And a lot of hire machines when you dry hire now they're starting to come out with tilt hitches and stuff
yeah,
too. So they've
yep.
realised wants that.
Yeah, even when you price new items, it's all priced with tilt hitches now. So
Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, that's true. Um, what about the digging conditions in I say Canberra or the ACT? What's it like there? Like in Melbourne, we have heaps of rock. In the west where I am, there's heaps of rock. And you're often breaking teeth if you're drilling. You're breaking all your teeth on your augers. We've always got hammers. Every machine's got a hammer with it. What's it like there for the ground and that?
yeah, so here when you're digging deep basements, you have blue rock. Canberra's clay, like Canberra's got a bit of everything, to be honest. But yeah, it's definitely more rocky in some of the new suburbs and stuff like that. You definitely need a hammer to go and do a site cut. But depends where you are, I guess. So depends
Mm,
which side of town, what was there before. But yeah, definitely once you're getting deep, like anywhere, it's all rock.
yeah, yeah. So it's probably similar conditions. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right. And then just going back to, I suppose, the workers and that, how do you handle, like, when it rains? Like, what do you do with the guys, or if there's no work for the day or something? What's just so other people can learn from it as well?
So basically, have a chat to the boys. You know yourself. You're always watching that forecast.
Yeah.
And some days it gives you a bump steer. You think, bloody hell, like you move stuff around. So keep
Yeah.
them going as much as I can. And then on a rain day, they're off. It's as simple as that. And sometimes, they're better to have a day off. You don't really want guys at work in the rain or not productive or the mentality's, not as good as it could be just because everyone's wet or everyone's not achieving what they can achieve. So I
Yeah.
think, like anyone else, yeah, bit of downtime, but you can always catch up on things. And sometimes I think the guys enjoy it, to be honest.
Yeah. That's true. It's actually the guys used to look forward to rain days because we'd actually stop and have a good chat. Well, they'll have a day off to go and catch up on things,
Yeah.
because they pay bills or go buy stuff. Because
Yep.
you end up working 40 hours, 50 hours a week, you don't get a chance to do anything.
That's it. Get a chance to. If we're working Saturdays, you really only have one day a week to sleep in. So a good rain day,
Yeah, that's true. That's
time to
true.
catch up.
And sometimes what I used to do with my guys is we do like maintenance or something. So we just go and like either wash machines or clean something or do a service. What about your maintenance and that? How do you handle all your maintenance on your machines?
So anything small, I do in house. I'm a mechanic by trade, so but all the stuff under warranty, Volvo does, and etc. So I think, yeah, on older units, I'll definitely service. But sometimes, yourself, like if you're putting 50 hours a week in a machine, you're doing 20 hours a week of admin. The last thing you want to do is lay under a digger, changing oils, etc. So, you know, yeah, you don't do it if you don't have to, I guess, because you don't have the time. And I've got a young family. I want to spend time with my family, so you just bring out the manufacturers and they service them.
Yeah, no, I think you're right too. And nowadays, yeah, a lot of sites want proper maintenance schedules and
Yeah,
things.
they do. But it's also food for thought, knowing that your oil samples are sent away, your planetaries and your drives, all those sort of things are going okay, and everything's tested, everything's recorded, and yeah.
That's it. Oh, very good. I suppose the argument buying old versus new, what would your opinion be on buying old machines versus new machines?
Um, my oldest bit of gear is 2020 models, so and I'll try and turn stuff over. I'd rather have less but have newer. I think for me, I'd rather turn stuff over as soon as it's out of warranty, replace it. I don't think, yeah. On hourly hire, it's tricky because you're there to do a job. You don't really want to be there with a mechanic every second week, or if you had your own contract works where you're doing your own basement or something. If a machine's got something broken, you can put it in the back corner, and your other machines, can still generate enough material, etc. So on hourly hire, I think to have fresher gear is better. Better for me, better for the primary contractor. and better for the boys. The boys enjoy new stuff. You know, if you've got two old diggers and a new one parked there, they're going to argue over the new one.
Yeah, it's actually a good. It's a good point you're saying that because when you're an hourly, you can't really afford to keep
No,
stopping.
you can't. And you like, yeah, there is times where things break, like everything's breaks, everything wears. You are going to get that, but I think if you've got something there that's a bit clapped out or too many hours on it, you're better off to replace it, I believe. And there's all the perks, tax perks, debt and etc. So you're better off to sit in something comfortable.
Yeah, it's funny you say when all the guys fight over the new equipment because
Yeah.
I hardly ever got to christen any of my new machines because all the guys were like straight in there. They got all the good stuff, and I, as the owner operator, always ended up in the oldest machine. You know.
Yeah, I'd say yeah, that's probably the case. And then you're looking at they're going to scratch it or who's going to put the first mark on it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And the boys used to all bag each other, like I used to try.
Good banter. I enjoy that about our industry. There's some good banter.
I joke around with them, and obviously you see them a lot, so you become almost like mates. You know what I mean? But and then
Yeah,
and then the other thing is that then you still got to have that limit where you're still the boss. You got to still make the calls. Like how do you find that?
um, it's I find it's not too bad. I've been a site manager before, where you're dealing with people on a friendship level, and then you know directing them pretty firm what they need to do. It's yeah, there's times to joke around and muck around, but there's times where at the end of the day we're paying the bills, we're seeing what's coming in, what's going out. So there's times where on attendance or stuff like that where you have to be pretty firm, pretty direct, and that's just running a business. That's not that you want to be that type of boss. That's just what goes with it. So especially on hourly hire, if you've got people that don't show and you go, okay, that item sat there for 3 days, it didn't generate this many hours, didn't generate this much income. You go, what can we change here or why? So, and that's anybody in my position. So your position, we're all the same.
Yeah, and it's true because the other thing on top of that, the customer starts getting upset, and then
Yeah,
they
absolutely. Yeah,
start looking for someone else, and then you're stuffed, and they sign your machine off, and that's it.
yeah, absolutely. And like we all understand, life can be tricky to juggle. People have things on, but when you're meant to be there, you're meant to be there, and that's it.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. It's hard to juggle. So with employees, how do you find it? Like, is it hard to get employees in the ACT, or is there like an abundance? Like, how's the work there?
I think it's probably not hard. I think it's probably more who you know. I guess ACT is a bit smaller, so if you've worked with somebody in the past and you rate that person, you might relink up with them a few years later. I had an ad up last year, funny enough, and I had this young guy call me. He's like, "Yeah, I operate cats, a GPS, this and that." And I was like, "How old are you, mate?" He's like, 22. I know this, I know everything. I was like, "What do you want?" He's like, "Oh, I want 46 an hour in a ute." I'm just like, "Mate, like, I've dug more dirt than you've walked on, like, no chance." And like, you do get that. So I prefer if I know them, you know, or somebody who knows them, they can be a good reference, etc. And yeah, but I think Canberra's got plenty of operators, good operators, and there's a lot of guys out there. So if you can secure one, it's good for your business. And yourself, with good workers, it gives you confidence. You go, you know what, I might move this person to that bit of plan. I might look at pricing a new 20 or etc. And it gives you a bit more clear direction on what you can do, because it's not you that has to be in the machine. You can put your attention elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think it's good to involve the guys. Sometimes I've taken my operators with me to go and buy equipment, and I'd say
Yeah,
to them, "Jump in, tell me what you think," and then they sit in there when I'm negotiating, and they see the whole process, and they feel involved. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
then the machine they appreciate it. They're like, "Oh wow, the boss got this for me," so they're happy.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
It's yeah, you want you guys to be happy. So and opened, and you do want that friendship. You want to, my guys outside of work, catch up for a social drink or whatever, and it can't always just be about work, but at 6:30 in the morning it's about work. So you know
it is. It's funny. You got to walk that fine line
yeah,
between and being a boss.
but I
It's
do
hard.
enjoy it. So
Yeah. Well, as long as you're enjoying it, that's the main thing. What do they say? That once you stop enjoying it, then it's a sign to
yeah,
make a change.
absolutely.
Yeah. And what was it like starting out for you? So you said you had that little 1.5, and that. How was it starting out right at the start? Like,
So I had that. I bought that in 2017, and I kept it quite simple. Didn't register for GST. so I could earn under the $75,000 threshold without doing bad statements and whatever. So yeah, it was good. I just had a little gum tree out up. Used to use a couple of workmates every weekend and go and do stuff, and yeah, it was good. It sort of gave you an insight to quoting, and I'd always quote everything on materials spot on, but time, a few times, like I was working for free basically. So you would look at a job, and I've heard you say this, and everybody's in the same position. You look at a job, you go perfect, take some photos, make some notes. For a small business, anything over $1,000, I'd send a proper quote, and then it might be like 6-7 weeks before that person accepts. You go back and you're like, I didn't notice that retaining wall, I didn't notice this, or do you know what I mean? And that's just what sort of goes with it. But yeah, you definitely learn, you definitely forecast better, time management, and yeah, I think that was a building block to what I do now, and sort of understanding that side of the business, I guess.
Yeah. Actually, that I was going to ask you, like, what advice would you give to someone starting out like a business? And you've just answered some of those questions, you know. So apart from like making sure that you do quote properly and look out for everything, what else can you what other advice?
So just to know what you want to do, like especially, as far as plant, if you're going to go and finance a digger, buy what you want, know exactly what you want to do, but have the connections and have good relationships. So I didn't transition into full-time subcontracting for many years. I was just doing this on the side, and then luckily the company in Canberra that I was working for gave me the opportunity to transfer as a full-time subcontractor. They backed me, which I'll be forever grateful. You don't necessarily get that, and with hourly hire, like there's no written contracts. It's very verbal. You can go out and buy 10 diggers, but if stuff falls through, you don't have the work. You're probably paying around 80 to 100,000 each just in interest on per item. So I think start small and get what you want. I think if you're going to sit in it and pay for it, sit in what you want.
Yeah. No, good words. Good words. Yeah. There's no point buying something that you're not sure about that, because once you've bought it, a lot of times you're stuck with it for a while.
Yes, you are. Yeah, you're in it. Absolutely. So, but I think, yeah, maybe get some accounting advice, forecast what you can make. Um, you know, Everybody's so focused on a machine, but you're not looking at the other costs. So in Canberra, you have to trade. You need a secure local job certificate, which is another cost. You need obviously your insurances, but there's all these little things that maybe unless you run a full Excel spreadsheet and forecast it, a 1.7 ton's not going to cover that. So
Yeah.
there's just to research a little bit, speak to guys in industry. And I have heard you say, and I have done it several times, hire a unit in, get a 5 tonner in, hire a 3.5, whatever you need for that job. Make sure your profit margin's there. That way, you're not working for free.
Yeah.
And then there's all the little things like checking your dials, all the stuff to cover you then. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure somebody's gone out there with a small machine just to make $1, and they've hit something or something, it just wasn't worthwhile. So
I'll put my hand up to that.
yeah, it happens.
It happens. Yeah.
You
It's
can't
true.
see what's in the ground, right? Like there's
Yeah.
stuff there, and it does happen.
I can't even. Oh, I can't even remember how many times I've come home and said to my wife, "I just worked for free today." Like she'll see
Yeah,
me fall down and she'll say, "What's wrong?" And I'll just say, "Oh, you don't want to know. I've just worked for free, and I've done this, and I had to do that." And at 6 o'clock at night, I've come home, and I'm like, "You have heaps of those days, yeah."
you do. But then you have days where you win.
Yeah.
Like I was doing a little dig in the backyard, 2 streets away, wanted dirt. Like you have those, you're charging at the time. I think I was getting like $42 a cubic meter to excavate export,
Yep.
and you have those times where a little 1.5 tonner makes as much as a 8 ton digger in a day because of how you've done your calculations, etc. But there is times where you're there doing, you're sweeping a footpath at 7 o'clock at night, and you're like, bloody hell,
Yeah.
cleaning up and trying to get out of there.
I suppose that's the other thing. We've got to bank the wins, because a lot of times we focus on the negatives, and
Yeah,
we're all like bagging our industry. Oh, it's a pain in the ass. Oh, you're not making money, and the operators and this. And I suppose it's easy to fall into that trap of just being negative. So I think a lot of times we should be focusing on some of the wins as well, like you just said.
I think so. And I think when you have those wins, like it's important to put money aside. And like if you say you've only got one item of plant, it could be a bobcat, whatever it is, like make sure you've got the funds to repair it, get it serviced, keep it looking good, because presentation's key. Like you see a digger bucket missing a tooth, and you see it a mile away,
Yep.
and little things like that. So I think some guys, might get a service bill or get something, and go, shit, that was expensive. And I've done it in the past, but keep your gear running and just put aside money for that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true because the first thing that as soon as you're taking that machine off the float or coming off the truck, whatever, the first thing that customers are looking at is what's the machine look like? Why
Yeah,
it's got no teeth on it.
but so is the opposition. So is all the other guys subcontracting. So is primary everybody notices this stuff.
Yeah.
So even us guys, like we do this for a living. I can't drive past a job site and not look in. Like, you see diggers all day. You see diggers 7 days a week, and you still notice.
It's funny, because we go for walks around, like while my kids play soccer, we go for walks around like a river close to where they train. And as we're walking, we're talking, my wife and I should say. And then I'll just like mid conversation, I'll stop, I'll notice an excavator at a site, and I'll be just looking at it while we're walking, and she'll just say, "Are you still here? Like, what are you doing?" And just looking at what he's done, or just watching. It's just it becomes like a norm. You have to look at all.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I remember my wife said that her dad, he was an electrician, and as they were young, every time they drove past them, he'd say like, "Oh, I worked on that house," or "I did that." And then now they always catch me out going, "Oh, kids, I worked here. Dad used to. Oh, I worked on this site. I had this," and they always say like, "You're just like my dad now. Yeah, well, you've worked here, you've worked there." Do you do that too? Like, do you ever like?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to do a lot of work at the Australian War Memorial here in Canberra, and every time I drive past, it takes me back. Very good experience.
Yeah, and it's good. It's good to be able to say that and be proud of your work and say like,
Absolutely,
that. Yeah, no, that's good. What about you don't know? Do you have any trucks or no?
No trucks, no. So,
is there any reason you don't have trucks? Is it just not part of your deal?
Potentially in the future. I feel like what a machine can generate, there's different costs associated with a truck. So obviously your rego, etc. Whereas a machine you can put on a job site and away you go, kind of thing. So plus parking it, all those sort of issues, and there's floats, there's tilt trays out there, there's other trucks you subby in when you need it. I had a rigid on last week, subbed in for me. It wouldn't pay at this point to own a tipper. Definitely down the track if the work was there for it, or depends what I had going on. It's definitely good advertisement. It's definitely, yeah. And they do look good, but yeah. What's a truck and dog running for in Melbourne at the moment? What's the charge out rate?
Well, it depends. A lot of it is all contract rate. Like most guys prefer to be on contract, so it depends. You know what I mean? On their like meterage or tonnage. But you could be getting on an hourly rate anywhere from like 180 to 200 an hour, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, same as here. Yep.
Yeah. But most of the guys will prefer contract rates, and a lot of times that's what the work is. It's all like per meter, per ton.
Yeah.
And that's why you see a lot of guys in trucking trailers flying down freeways and stuff, because they're trying to get more loads in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like if I was doing big basements, it would make sense. 70% of it would be export, and therefore you're better off to own your own trucks. But I'd probably rather secure a tip site or something permanent before getting a truck or something along those lines.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good call what you're saying, because trucks do have a lot of costs.
They do. And
I have a few trucks, and I'll tell you what, it's very costly. And I think for what the rates that they're paying for trucks, you don't earn anywhere near as much. But you're wearing and tearing your truck a lot more probably, than the machine.
Absolutely. No, they've definitely got their perks, but I think if you go and buy, a new Kenworth or something, for what you pay for that, for what it yields in return, as opposed to a digger, just for me, and I'd prefer to be in a machine. I think I've been in trucks before, I don't mind them, but I think I'd rather do 10 hours in a digger, and everybody's different. People have preferences, trucks or whatever, but I feel like that machine could yield more, I believe.
Yeah, look, there's been times where I've been working in my digger for weeks, and then I go in my truck for a day and I'm like, oh, this is not bad. It's easy. Like I'm not watching exactly where I'm digging and watching for this, watching for that. And then after like 2 days, I'm like, oh, no, I need to get out. I need to go back in the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same.
Yeah. So it's good for a little bit, but not too long. Yeah. So what do you do to like try and stand out from all the other competition? Like, what's something that you do differently?
I just try and be clean and tidy. So I think first and foremost, you want your work to look good because you want the primary contractor you're working for to win more work. So then you have more work basically, and you want to do a good job. So I think, yeah, bit of detail. Been digging a lot of stormwater the last 4 months, and lots of benching, and I enjoy that stuff. Cut stairs in for the boys, um, that sort of stuff. And I think if you're clean and if you're digging to the right depths, not over excavating, I think, and a lot of guys do this. It's not just me. That there's a lot of guys in the industry that do that. But I think if you're clean and tidy, and as a subcontractor, there's almost like two subbies. There's the one that's always on time, clean, would do anything, and then there's the other type that's like, oh, I'm a subby. I'll get here when I want. I leave when I want. I have lunch when I want. I'll just sit there idling till they give me work. Whereas if you're efficient, you're continuously looking for work. And this comes back to having a set of plans in a digger and knowing what's ahead, and prepping or doing stuff, or even checking the forecast. If on a late afternoon, if you start sealing up stockpiles, tidying up, prepping, if it rains, beautiful, you're ready. If it doesn't rain, you still look good. So, you know,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think just communicating, being punctual, being on time, but doing a good job. Like, just because you're an hourly hire doesn't mean you can switch off a little bit. And we're there to get the meters in, so that's what we do. We get those meters, and that's sort of goals that I set for myself in a digger, let alone just being a sub. Even if I was on the books in a digger, I'd still set those goals.
Yeah. I think it's good what you said then about making sure that you look good so that your customer looks good, because
Yeah,
if they're getting more work, they're going to obviously try and keep you. It's a two-way street, so you got to help them so they can help you, I suppose. So we can't look
absolutely.
at a one-way street where like, oh, I'm just here to dig, man, just sit in the machine and oh no, you tell me what to do. You got to be a bit
Yeah,
proactive. Yeah.
yeah. You kind of want to lead the way in the area that you're working, fully understand, the sequence chain, how it all works there, the program for that area, inspections, all that sort of stuff, because that's, you're taking ownership of the work you're doing, and you want to do a good job, and it's good to be involved in that side of things. Like I
Yeah.
said before, to sit on a stockpile and load out, or in the posi tractors pushing out topsoil in a subdivision, like just doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. And then you know what? It is a small industry, so word gets around, and if you're good, everyone will know you, and they'll talk about you. Even if you moving from one company to another, they'll know, and then people start calling and saying, "Hey, man, call Digtech. They're really good." You know what I mean? It does. It gets
Yeah.
around.
Do you find though with hourly high, like you'll think you're quiet, you'll make a few calls, nothing, and then within an afternoon you could have had 10 diggers working?
This is this
Yeah,
this is the coaster, I call it, the roller coaster, where 1 minute you've got nothing and next
yeah,
minute it's flat out. And then, like I remember when I used to work for a lot of agencies, the plant hire agencies, they'd cancel on me at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'll be stressing. I've got nothing for tomorrow, and then I'll start calling them all desperately and all that, and then at like 5 o'clock I'll get like four phone calls. All right, we need you tomorrow, and I'm like, oh, hang on, I've got something now, hang on. Yeah, it's like a roller coaster. It is. It is.
yeah,
How do you handle it? Are you getting used to it, or is it just like
yeah. I'm used to it. I think it's more stressful when you have employees, because obviously, you want them productive and working and paying their bills. But yeah, I've got a really good relationship with the company I do most of my work with. Um, and so it's been for, almost the whole 2 years soon. I've had a machine with them, no matter what. I've had machines out with other contractors, and yeah, I think it gives you that confidence. You have a good relationship. You suss out what's coming up. Um, I didn't like it at first, calling around. I'll be honest. It's hard to ring up and try and sell yourself on the phone, and this is what I bring, and but that's what you have to do to pay the bills, and keep generating material.
yeah? And I think I said this in another podcast where it's good to maintain contact. So it's not like oh, you're sucking up to everyone and trying to keep them in mind, but it's just like every now and then call some supervisors that you've dealt with in the past. Hey, how are you? Talk to them. How's things? And even if you don't call just looking for work, just call them, see how they're going, and that. So that way they remember you always, and you're in there.
Absolutely.
They're like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll call Mark. Yeah, that's right. He's got this. He's got that. because if you don't, and they just forget about it too. So you got to keep in their mind. You got to keep sort of calling, maintaining that contact. You know.
Yeah, and everybody's doing it. Everybody that provides plan on hourly hire is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's important to be like you're saying, fresh in their minds, and that's where doing a good job stays fresh. I think it's easier to forget people who aren't good because you're not going to use them again.
Yes. Yeah. How it's funny because sometimes when you're there working, and then a subby turns up, and you can just see that they're no good or they're real slow,
Yeah,
and you just watch that transition of the supervisor or the foreman going around and just going slowly, just getting them out, and you just watch. You can like watch the thing happen.
yeah,
You
you do. Yeah, it's funny from. You spend 10 hours a day in a digger and you're predominantly looking at the bucket, but you see everything because you're swinging around. It's yeah,
can,
you do notice a lot.
yeah, you do, you do. I suppose the other good thing is too having a variety of machines means so if one thing it can't work because of just say weather or they've stopped that part of the job, you might, so if they say can't excavate anymore over here, we've got to wait for the permits or whatever, you can say, oh, I'll put your operator in the posi track, go do something else. I suppose that's another benefit of having a variety of machines, not just
I
not
think
just
so. I think it's a good ability to be able to operate them all. I
mm,
think so. I think it's definitely, if you've got somebody that can jump in a 35 and then jump in a 5 and jump back in a posi or jump on the ground and going, get a spinning level, set a few different heights for capping beam or pads or anything. I think it's just very diverse, and I think people notice that. Do you know what I mean? If somebody's been in the same digger for too long, you kind of need to have a few days in something else to sort of get back up to speed.
yeah, that's true. What's so we're talking about, I suppose, positives and stuff before. What do you really enjoy about being a business owner and that? What's the best part about it, you reckon?
I think the whole thing. I think knowing that I'm building something, and let's be honest here, you can't make this sort of money on wages, on a salary.
Yeah.
It's You can't do that, and at our ages, you want to achieve, and I don't want to do this when I'm 65. I want to be fully set up, and I've got a son now, so I enjoy what I'm building because potentially, I'd love him to be a civil engineer or something one day, and
Yeah.
have something for him. But I generally like owning equipment. I do like all of it. I do sometimes it is stressful, but it's definitely worth it. I believe it's definitely worth it if you understand the business side of things. Understand we can all operate. I get that, and it's great. But I think if you understand the other side of it. So as far as I use Zero, I've got trackers in all machines. I check my hours. I reference. I've got Excel spreadsheets. Like it's understanding that side of the business. I enjoy quite a bit. Sometimes more than being in the excavator, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. What about what don't you enjoy? What's something that you think you wish was different?
You know what I don't enjoy? RDOs. When you've got a day off. Were you ever like this? You're like, shit, like,
Yeah. Is
I
that
want to
why?
go, let's go.
Yeah. Why is that? Is that just because you got all the workers, you got to keep them going, or is that because you just don't want to have a day off? Or
Just sometimes you just don't want to have a day off, but it's good to have a day off. So
yeah.
that's just a fun little one. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's not really too much I don't enjoy, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. I know in the past, some of the other guys have mentioned the parts they don't like is that we get used, and maybe, I don't know, you might agree or not disagree, but sometimes I feel like we get used as a bank for the customers. Like we don't get paid for so long, not
Yeah.
payment terms, and that sort of can a lot of guys can't handle that because they can't maintain or haven't got the cash flow to wait to get paid 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. How do you handle those long-term payments? Do you have that?
Not really. So it's quite. I've never been paid, not paid, which is since day one. Since even mucking around with the 1.5 ton, I've always been paid. So I'm quite fortunate there. Um, I allow X amount to run a month. I make sure I've got it. I make sure I've got months ahead. So, and luckily, if I drop a machine somewhere, it might be there for 4 or 5 months. I think if you are doing those jobs here, there, everywhere, it's a little bit hard to chase that and track that. But when you're invoicing X amount, which is a good sum of money, I think the primary contractor's got to pay it one lump sum, and I think it's not too bad.
Yeah, and you just remind me, I'm just writing something down. You mentioned zero before. So one of the questions I was going to ask is how do you handle all your paperwork and that? So obviously zero is one method.
Yeah, so I use Zero to do all my invoicing. I use Docketbook, which is my electronic day dockets. So I'll fill that out. My guys have all the apps on their phones. That gets sent to the site supervisor, site management, and they sign it. And then when I send an invoice at the end of the month off Zero, I attach the Docketbook report. So it looks quite professional. It's got all the hours. It matches the invoice, and then I do all my payroll, cost coding, everything else on Zero. So Zero's got lots of little videos to teach you what you need to know, and yeah, single touch payroll, those sort of things, which I think it's important to know this stuff. I think as a small business, you need to know this stuff, I believe.
Yeah. I remember in the beginning, I used to have a spreadsheet and then I had to go and like I made a spreadsheet with everyone's pay slips and then I had to go to the Australian tax website, try and work out how much tax
Yeah,
to do it all on a spreadsheet until I found zero. And then that was just like another game. Like he did everything for you. You just even the guys used to put their own times in on zero. Just I gave them like access to their own little timesheet thing, so they used to put their own times in, and I just double check it and just form a payslip, do it, done. Like you say, sends it all off. The accountant can log in. It did make my life a lot easier too. You know.
yeah. I think there's tools out there to use, and I think definitely the days. I'm not sure what Victoria's like, but the days of handwritten dockets here, those days are soon to be gone. I was with a contractor last year, and you had to be electronic.
Yeah, I think it is. It's all yeah. I mean, even now, like risk assessments, and I don't know if you watched. I did a video with JR Safety Co. and all the risk assessments are on. They've got a QR code now, so you don't even
Yep,
have to have all the paperwork. It's just scan these, scan everything's scanned on. All the
yep.
inductions and on now. Everything's scanned on. It's all paperless.
Yeah, so on my PosiTrack, Viper provides one. There's a QR code you scan on. So when it gets on site, and it's got all the information for the operators, for the people in safety roles that are putting down information and getting that machine inducted to site. So it's quite efficient and it's all there. So
Yeah, it makes life easier. You know, look,
I think
eventually, I think it'll all be like that, isn't it?
I think so. What's with your business and over the years, what was your turning point to make decisions, a big decision, or how many guys did you end up having at the peak?
So at my peak, I had, I think the most I ever had was like 8 at one stage.
Yep,
Uh, that was a mix of guys in the excavators, driving tippers, I think maybe one labourer, and all the rest, yeah, just in excavators. So that was the peak. I had multiple machines running. What I found was the turning point for me was I found myself thinking that, I'm doing really well. I had some time to myself. But what I found was that when I had that many guys, there was always going to be somebody off one day out of that group.
yep,
So almost every day I had to go and cover for someone. So I'd never really be free to do like what I wanted to do, which I thought what everyone else does is that as you get more guys, it frees you up. Then you can go and school, work on getting more work. You know what I mean? And go and you got more time to do quotes, this and that. But what I found was all I was doing was running in a circle and covering for someone always, because then someone would call in sick, then someone wouldn't turn up, and or something would break down, then I'd be running to try and fix that.
yep,
So I found like I think I said there was in another video. There's a tipping point. Like I was probably at that point where I either had to go and get more machines and put maybe a manager on and like expand so that I step back a bit and do actually have more time, or just go scale back down a little bit less and have less to worry about. And I chose the second option. I just started scaling back down.
going down.
Yeah, and then just thinking, you know what, just bit less stress, less headache, less overheads. Because the next
Yep,
step was going to be like, all right, now I need to cover, like put a manager on and cover his wage somehow, and then everything else had to be profit on top. So I don't know. That's the points. They're the points that I found that were deciding like whether okay keep going really big or just slow down. But also on that note, I did a lot of hourly hire work and still tried to work through plant hires, and that was a bit hard because then obviously by the time they deduct their commissions, this and that, you start actually losing money, and then your workers, want more money. We don't get paid overtime, but I've got to pay the
Yeah,
work overtime. There's all those things, you know. So,
yeah,
and the problems that all of us face, you know.
yeah, definitely. The
Uh,
boys are keen to work Saturdays, and you know yourself, you're calculating double time rates and what that
yeah,
machine's yielding. But that's you
and
know
then on Saturdays you're making no money. You're actually paying them, you know.
a 5 ton digger runs for free.
That's what I was finding. So
Yeah,
it was good, and I didn't realize all that for a while. So I kept trying to expand and do more and do more, and then there was a point where I just looked at it and I was saying, looking at the accounts and saying, it's I've got so many people and I'm getting bigger, but the money's just the same. You know what I mean? Like it's not
yeah,
changing. So that's what I found. So I don't know. I might have missed something and could have done it differently, but that's what sort of tipped me to start scaling back down again. You know?
because it's exciting when you're buying machines, you're putting on people, and you know that side of it is unbelievable. Every owner operator, you know, you love that stuff.
Yeah,
Just keeping it going though, then is the tricky part to it.
yeah. And it's always nice to like put it up on social media and add another machine to the fleet, you know, and add this, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, for sure.
going, wow, this guy's killing it, man. This guy's doing really good.
Yeah,
But they don't see the background where now I've got to try and get work for that machine, you know?
yeah, absolutely. And just the lead up to that, and yeah, like I said earlier, the hours that you put in that you guys don't see, or maybe you didn't forecast for a few years earlier prior to establishing yourself is, you know, you're always thinking, you're always. I've sent emails at 3 in the morning. Do you know what I mean? Like you're always ticking, and I
Yeah.
think for you, like, and you'd probably agree, when you're an owner operator and you go and do a 10-hour stint in a machine in a day, everything else that you can't do via a phone call, you're doing at night time.
Yep. That's so true. So
So,
true.
and the more guys you have, the more you're doing. Do you know what I mean? Like on your end to maintain work to keep those guys going.
Yeah. And then what I found myself doing is when I had multiple machines, is that I'd be there after hours trying to float those machines myself. So, you
Yep.
know, I'd finish my job at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and then I'd jump in the truck and then go all the way, 2 hours away, pick up a machine, go drop it off to the next job for the worker so it's ready for him in the morning. And then while I'm dropping it off, I notice, oh, this hasn't been greased or done. So I'll stay and I'll grease that. And I'll get
Yeah.
home at 8 o'clock. And then I'm like, shit, I still got to do all the paperwork for tomorrow and remember who did what and invoice. Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, that's part of the thing. But as you expand, yeah, it's like you've got to either, like I said, start outsourcing things, but then
Yes.
that all costs as well. So how do you cover those costs? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's why initially I'll just stay a smaller unit, but have newer gear and turn it over quicker. I believe.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good call. Yeah, yeah,
I think yeah. We all want 30 excavators. We all want truck and dogs, floats,
yeah.
graders. But yeah, I think if by yourself as an owner operator, I think if you keep it semi lean but efficient, then you know you should have success.
Yeah, and look, it doesn't mean it won't work for everyone. Some people
Yeah.
might, but I did notice too that yeah, if you did want to have newer equipment and nicer stuff, that then it did become harder because as I was upgrading and getting all newer stuff, that was costing more, but then it was
Yeah.
chewing into all the profits more. So it's sort of like
Absolutely.
yeah,
And you know yourself, you see the machine repayments monthly. Like I mentioned earlier, you see the interest you pay on an item of plant, and or balloon payments at the end, chattel mortgages, all that sort of stuff. It's easy to go to a dealer and look at a machine and go, "Yep, I want it." Do you know what I mean? You picture your
yeah,
logo, but the upkeep is definitely there, and once you've signed that contract, it's yours.
yeah. And then sometimes there's a catch because I remember I had a couple of bits of equipment paid off, and then if they worked, they worked. If they didn't work, it wasn't that bad. Whereas when
Yeah,
I knew, you had to make those repayments, so you have to keep that machine going. You know what I mean? To get
yeah,
them.
absolutely.
You
I'm
don't have-
fortunate that half of my gear I own, half I don't. So you sort of choose. I think it's beneficial to for stress management and also to what works and what doesn't.
yeah, yeah. But like you say, we're fortunate with machines. You don't have reg and all this sort of stuff. You know.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's not easy. Like there's definitely challenges, and there's been a few speed bumps along the way which I've had to overcome, and that's everybody in business. And you know, I think that teaches you. I think if you don't have the hard times early on, you don't learn from it, and you know it's easy to foresee where you want to go, what direction, what changes. the timing of selling something, updating, etc. So
Yeah, and that's like you say, it's a bit of a roller coaster, but it's a revolving door. So you can't get disheartened and say like, oh, I had to sell a few machines, like now everything looks bad, because that it's not the case. Like as you probably see, sometimes you got to sell one or two things to buy something else, and then
yeah,
you move with the times. So you might get work where it's all excavator work, and then they say, oh, we need a grader or something, and then you think, oh, you know what, and you work out your sums, and you go, I can sell a machine and get a grader, and you just got to look at it as in it's not a bad thing now if you do sell one thing, like
yeah,
just
absolutely.
doing something else.
Did you ever do meter rates? So it might be on a subdivision, footpath prep or subsoils, etc. Did you
I
dabble in that?
I did dabble in it a bit, but I was a bit fearful because they did ask me to do like electrical trenches per meter,
Yep.
do Aggie trenches and that per meter. But I always had that fear that like, what if I turn up and nothing's ready, or what if things are in the way and then I've got to move stuff, and then who pays for that? What if we hit rock? What if we do this? There was all
Yeah.
what ifs. So then I sort of backed out a bit, but I had the opportunity to do it. I think I did one or two maybe as a trial,
Yep.
and instantly I found headaches. Like they had stockpiles of crushed rock in the way. Then they had this. So then I'm moving that in my meter rate time, and I'm losing time. You know what I mean? And then they didn't have enough screenings. So then I'm waiting for the backhoe to bring screenings, and I'm like, this is all digging into my time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's why I probably didn't continue in it. What were you going to say? Sorry. Yeah.
That's originally why I bought the Posi. I was going to put a graded blade on the front and then utilize the Leica GPS off my Volvo to run on that. So I was thinking along the lines of meter rate for prepping. And then I've worked on a subdivision. I saw the hold ups and etc. And I was like, maybe it's not, hourly hire. If stuff isn't organised or other things, play a factor, which it does. Stuff's always changing on a job site. The meter rates maybe aren't the best thing unless you have a lot of it and you can be productive and achieve that.
Yeah, I had a guy that was on the site with me, and he just did like he had a 14 tonner, and he had like obviously worked hourly rates, and then when they did electrical trenches and installed pits, he brought in one of his labourers, and they'd install the pits, and he'd do all the trench work, and he said he was doing well, he did well with it, and he had a system, and but he dealt with the foreman on the site to make sure that everything's clear, the paths are all
Yeah,
clear.
ready to go.
Yeah, so he'd do all that on hourly rate, and then when it was time to do the meter rate, then everything would be already clear and done, and he'd have everything prepared. All the rock would be brought to him already. So I suppose if you've got the ability to have that prepared beforehand, then it's probably worthwhile, But if you're just turning up on a site and they say, today you're going to do all these Aggie trenches, and then you get there and there's just crap everywhere, nothing's ready, then like, yeah, how do you charge that? That was my
Yeah,
problem. Yeah. Even like you say, funny because when we started getting these grader blades for the posies, um, I mentioned it to a lot of the subdivision foremen when I was working on those sites. Like, oh, I'll go get one, and we can do all the footpaths. But no one wanted to entertain it. They're like, oh no, we'll just do it the old way with the excavators. Don't worry, just leave it. And then
yep.
so they never, like a lot of them didn't want to actually even try. So it's funny because sometimes they get stuck in their ways.
I think they're a good thing. I think they're efficient. You can windrow, keep the fines in your material different, ready for rolling, and I think definitely you can get the meters in. But a unit with GPS on it is as much as a good second-hand 5-ton digger. So you
Yeah,
know,
this is
unless
that's
yeah,
exactly what I was going to say to you. The other day I was driving past, they're doing a little road widening, and they only have like less than like 50 meters to do, and they're putting this grader in there, and I'm thinking, how's this guy even working in there? Why don't they just get a posse with a blade, and he'll probably do it all, and there's plenty of room. Then he can take the blade off and then move rock with his bucket. It just makes more sense, but
yeah,
some people can't get over that. They just stick to the old way.
old ways. But if
Yeah,
it works, yeah,
yeah, I suppose, yeah. Or maybe it's the case that they have to keep that machine working, so they just bring it there.
yeah, maybe, yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
But you think of the productivity, the hourly rate, um, you know, what you're charging that out for to what you're getting, and probably not the most efficient.
Yeah. How do you find it? Like now, I mean, being a business owner and probably done some projects yourself, and that, do you find that when you're watching other guys do things, you sort of judge them a little bit and go, "Oh, I wouldn't be doing it like that." Or they're not saving money this way. They could have done it this way. Do you?
Mate, I'm sure it happens with me and a machine. I think we all just do it. I
Yeah.
think, it's, yeah. When you're standing there watching a digger, you're seeing everything around. When you're in a digger, you're seeing the bucket unless you're spinning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's just, yeah, the industry and us guys, and I believe we all do it. But yeah,
Yeah.
you do notice.
You
You
do
see
know.
somebody pulling out asphalt with a mud bucket, you're like, mate, what are you doing? Where's your ripper? Where's your GP? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, you do. It becomes like that, and then you want to go tell them, you're like, ah, just leave it.
yeah, absolutely. No, definitely.
No, that's it. What about the future? What's the future for Digtech? What have you got in mind?
Um, just keep going how I'm going. I think I ordered a new 5-ton machine soon, so I'd like to eventually hop out of the machine at some point. If I was in a position and maybe collaborate with some other guys and go and do some projects, or yeah, but definitely maintain all my friendships and connections along the way. And just continue on and see growth in my staff and you know get those jobs. So I'd like to do a little bit of my own contract works. I've dabbled in it a little bit, and just hourly hire still. So
Yeah. Oh, that's it. How are you handling it? Is it a bit quiet there as well? Like Melbourne, it's very.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So I
Oh,
think COVID's still played a big impact in industries. I think at the moment it's a little bit quiet. I think maybe it's more to do with the elections and who's in. It's not the elections, but more government based. I believe.
yeah,
I look at what tenders are released, and nothing's too crash hot. Not like it was 12 months ago or 2 years ago. So,
yeah. So it is.
but I think it will pick up. I think next financial year, should pick up.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hope so because it is very quiet. I mean, on all the socials and that, all I see is operators looking for work.
Yeah, yeah,
Guys with machines saying we've got machines available. Everyone's putting them up on dry hire at the moment, so it's a sign.
yeah, definitely. But
Mm.
this is our industry. It can turn around. Like it's exciting because every job that we do is different. Every job you're challenged, you're learning something, and that's probably I haven't really said this, but that's probably what I enjoy the most when I really think about it. Every job I go to, you're doing something different. Um, you're always excavating something different, or there's different stuff that you're trying to achieve, or different designs, or different technology to work with, and I think that side of it is probably quite attractive to anybody interested in change and keep developing. You'll never know everything. You can't know everything. You're going to do a bridge job. It's different to road infrastructure. It's different to a nature reserve. Or you're always going to be learning something.
Yeah, and it's true. That's like to the point that if you're working in a factory, you might be on a press machine or something, and you're doing the same thing every day. Whereas you might
Yeah,
be in an elevator every day, but you're not doing the same thing. You know what I mean?
you're
You're
not
doing.
doing the same thing. Not at all.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, that's probably why I think we like the industry because you might still
Yeah.
be the same machine and you're a master in it, but you're doing something different all the time and you're learning. Yeah,
So when you're building something or you achieve something, you look back or you do a nice cut, bench battered, whatever you're doing, boxing out, could be just digging pads. But you look in there and it's the walls on the pad are square. You've taken the time to profile it out right, bulk out the middle, get to your heights. You've worked out all the heights yourself. Like there's satisfaction there.
yeah, it's true. It's true,
Yeah,
and that means you take pride in your work as well. So, and
absolutely.
that shines through, and customers see that, and that's why they call you
Yeah,
back.
and it's easier to do that than to stand there for me anyway and say how good you are. Just like it's easier over the course of a few months on a job just to show them, or a new site manager that you haven't worked with before. Just show them in the diggers, just do what you do, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There's no better feeling when they come up and go, "Oh man, thanks for doing that. You do a good job."
yeah. Or you stayed back when I didn't ask because you could foresee something that needed to change, or there was a design issue you picked up off the GPS and you advised us, or stuff
Yeah,
like that. I think for anybody that wants to be an operator, I definitely think start on the ground, learn the ropes, and it's not as appealing, being on a drilling for shotcrete bays or stuff like that, or doing other jobs on the ground. But learn on the ground, learn how to use a rover, Learn how to, even if you're given an area on a job, set of plans, a laser level, like know your benchmarks, know how to set all that up, because I think it does contribute to a better digger driver if you can read plans. I really believe that. So if you can jump in a digger and run your own race, so to speak, and you can understand fully your area, the specs, all those sorts of things, I think it's more interesting and it keeps you more active, and then you can manage, like, even though you're a subby, you can manage your area. So
Yeah, and that's a valid point too. I think because a lot of guys don't like to hear it when I say to them, "I think you need to start as a labourer," or
yeah,
if you have to start as a traffic controller or something on site, you got to start somewhere like at that level and be outside the machine to know what is expected when you're inside the machine. If that makes sense.
absolutely. I've been fortunate enough to work around some really good operators, and I remember at the time I was working with a few guys my age, but I only started in machinery quite late. These guys had been doing it for 10 or 12 years. And I remember there was a guy called Hunter, and I was watching the way he would cut a level across in a 35-ton machine, loading out trucks on the fly. I remember watching and going, well, there's a reason why I'm not in that machine. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes you need that to sort of see techniques. And I think even now, if I jump out on the ground, I'm working with the digger, you're sort of watching what they're doing. And, there's a lot of different ways to do things, but generally, if it's efficient, clean, that's definitely going to make sense to most people. So,
Yeah, I think that's good. That's good advice to anyone that's looking at starting to operate because you can't automatically just expect to jump in, get a massive rate, a car, all this stuff if you haven't done the groundwork and seen how it works from the start. You know?
absolutely. And
Yeah,
then positioning of a machine. You watch a good operator where they put it, how they jump off a stockpile, all those little things. You know, a good operator, if he's going to the other side of a job site to do a job, he's taken what buckets he needs. At the end of the day, he's got them all bundled up. Just those little things that you see in some of the older boys as a young guy. And I think if you notice that stuff and take it on board, their cabs are nice and clean, machines warmed up, greased properly, like just those little things. And then I think one of the other questions was somebody going into business.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think I sort of dabbled around it, but I think if you're going to be an owner operator and sitting in an item of plant which you're paying off, sit in what you want to sit in. If your preference is Kobelco, Cat, Hitachi, whatever it is, whatever you've had experience in, buy, because you're going to be in it. You've got to pay that off. Buy what you want, and make sure you fully understand your superannuation or the other stuff outside of it, like I've dabbled in.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good advice. Good
So,
advice.
and I believe newer is not always better, but when you're on hourly hire, I believe, as soon as my small stuff gets to 4,000 hours, I change it over, which I just sold an excavator this week. If you're doing your own contract works, I think you can have something a little bit older, something that if you've got the downtime, but on hourly hire, like if your item of plant's not moving, you're not making money.
Yeah, yeah. That's my motto always. Yeah,
Yeah,
that machine's not moving, you're not making any money. That's it.
absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. No, thank you for that. That's good advice. So hopefully all the listeners are taking that on board. Because I get a lot of questions from people, especially when I do my live sessions on the social media stuff. A lot of questions about starting out a business and starting out as an operator. And I think taking what you said on board would definitely help people.
And there's little things out there that are quite useful tools. Have you seen Moja One? It's on social media, so it connects to your phone. I use it quite a bit. For a little guy that's going to price a driveway, you can measure it up, get cut and fill calculations, volumes. You can put a cross section. You can send off a quote and attach an image of what you've measured up. You can measure up stockpiles, and for a little guy like these, I think it was $600-700. Like, in the grand scheme of things, not that much. If you make a miscalculation and you're working for free, that costs you a lot more. So there's little things that are out there that people can use and learn and foresee what the job is, but understand before you get there. Like I said, we all want to just own diggers. That's the fun side of it, but there's the other side to it where you really do need to understand how to keep that digger productive and moving.
Yeah. So that's some of the technology stuff we were talking about. So far, some of the things that I would also recommend is we said Zero to help you with your paperwork. You're saying
Yep, so I use Zero. I use Docketbook for all my digital dockets, daily dockets.
Yep.
I've got Mac track in all my machines. That's a tracking device where I can print off. If they say, "Oh, you went on site that day," I can be like, "Well, here's 8 hours. Here's start times, idle times, all that sort of stuff."
Yep.
Which is good for servicing. Good to maintain and monitor everything. Even if you've got a digger on the side of the road and a float's coming, you don't have to meet the float. You know when it's on there.
Yeah.
So you can put provisions in it, what time it starts. Moser I just mentioned, which is a measuring tool, which is quite good.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's basically what I use. So
Yep. Anything that can make our lives easier is better. Like you say, a small fee can be definitely like balanced out over time. Like like you say, if you're saving yourself working for free, and that why
yeah,
not? You know?
yep. There's always something you're going to learn.
Yeah.
There's always something new coming out or something that someone else has,
Yeah.
and you just want to be efficient and competitive, and at the end of the day, if everybody's sort of within your organisation is on the same page. We have you used Procore before?
No. No.
Great
What?
tool. So we use it so I subcontract mainly to a company called ComplexCo. They're awesome with all their tech stuff. So on Procore, any of my guys can get on it. We all have it. We've got access to the site. We can look at drawings. Um, you can look at all that sort of stuff, concrete pre-inspection forms, all the stuff that you would need. And, as much as you don't want your workers on the phone, they have to have a phone just to be on a job site.
It's so true. So even in
Everything's on there. So
it's all on there. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so there's stuff on there. There's information there. It's just how you choose to understand it and use it. But I think, you're paying subscriptions for everything. I think for a small guy starting off, you don't need this. But something like Moja, where you buy it out once, and have a look at some of the videos when you get off
Yeah.
here, and it's good. It's really
No.
good. Yeah, it gives you volumes, square meters. I've used it a few times to price stuff.
Yeah. When you talk about subscriptions, it's like I'm sure a lot of guys have got Netflix and all this other stuff. So they've just got to remember that, if you're willing to pay for that, this is work related business stuff. Like, why wouldn't you pay for it here when it's going to help?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, if it's going to help generate money, and I think, yeah, everything's developing. Like, we're only going to get better. Um,
yeah,
So I don't have anything integrated as far as machine control. I think I've had a go on it. I think it's pretty cool, but I
yeah,
think it'd be a long day just sitting there and not doing your craft.
yeah. True, true. No, that's it. Well, if that's it, have you got anything else you'd like to add, or you happy with this?
Happy with that, mate. It's been a good chat, and I feel like I semi know you because I've listened to your other podcasts. So any questions that I would have asked, I've heard the answer prior to this.
No, that's it. No, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a really good chat, and I appreciate your positivity, your honesty, just straightforward, man. So
Yep.
it's good to see because also the good thing is that you've given other people the opportunity to hear how it works, the realities of it all. So anyone that's thinking about starting a business or operating, like obviously, you've given us a lot of valuable information. And I wish you all the best with your future, the company. So thanks for coming on the show.
It's been good. I've enjoyed it. So everybody's got different experiences, and all company owners are going to have some sort of different wisdom to put out there. But that, in my experiences, this is what's worked, and pretty grateful for the position that I'm in. And thanks a lot for having me.
No worries. Thanks for sharing everything. Guys, thank you for listening. Make sure that you share all the episodes that I've been putting out on Spotify. Make sure you go on and subscribe onto YouTube. Like and follow everything on Instagram, TikTok. So getting the message out there. Don't forget, I'm doing my live sessions on every Sunday afternoon. So sometimes it's 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, depending on my kids' soccer programs. So I'm trying to do everything at once. But make sure you're tuning into the Spotify, and we're on Apple Podcast, Spotify, on YouTube Podcast, and the YouTube channel, all the other socials, so Facebook and everything. Anything you think of, we're on there. Make sure you go onto my website, www.earthworkshub.com.au. You can now advertise your business on there as well. So if you've got a business in the earthworks industry and you want people to know about it, make sure you go on there, list your business. It's like a yellow pages for our industry. So go in there, put your information on there, And then if you're ever looking for someone like a contractor for anything to do with Earthworks, go onto Earthworks Hub and you'll find someone on there. Let's help each other out. That's the whole point of it. So yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, mate.